It's early morning on Brisbane's southside in March 1985. The suburban rail network is being upgraded and electrified. New electric trains, fresh overhead wires, and a lot of talk from politicians about how modern and safe the system now is for a growing city. On this particular Sunday morning, two three-car electric trains are running on a single-track section between Kuraby and Beenleigh, passing through a small stop called Trinder Park. By 6:45 a.m, they will collide head-on. 2 people will be killed. 19 more will be injured. And Queensland Rail's computer-controlled, fail-proof signalling system installed only 2 years earlier will suddenly look a lot less fail-proof. This is the story of Queensland Rail's head-on collision at Trinder Park. Before we get into it, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss future episodes of Cruel Law, real disasters, dangerous places, and everyday trips that went horribly wrong. In March 1985, the Kingston to Beenleigh section had only recently gone electric. Old diesel-hauled commuter sets were giving way to new suburban EMUs. The upgrade was being sold as a leap forward in safety and reliability. But between Kuraby and Beenleigh, the geometry was still old school. It was a single line. Trains in both directions shared the same piece of steel, controlled by a new computer-based signalling system whose job was to make that safe. Rail officials described this system as fail-proof. On Sunday, the 24th of March, 2 three-car electric trains are timetabled over that single-track section. One is inbound towards the city with around 50 people on board. The other is heading outbound away from Brisbane. Somewhere between Kuraby and Beenleigh, the two paths are supposed to be kept apart purely by the logic of that signalling and the rules that go with it. Shortly before 6:45 a.m, both trains are approaching Trinder Park. In a healthy system, only one of them should ever be allowed into that block of single track at a time. On this morning, there are 2. In the quiet light of early Sunday, the drivers see each other's trains coming towards them. There is almost no time. The impact that follows is a low to moderate speed collision in engineering terms, but inside the leading carriages, it is brutal. Each train has 3 cars. The front cars of both sets take the hit and are badly crushed. On one of the trains, a 54-year-old driver is in the cab. He does not survive. In the same train, an 18-year-old male passenger is also killed. Both are from the Brisbane area. On the other train, the driver manages to jump clear in the final moments before impact. When rescue workers arrive, they find him dazed, sitting near the wreckage. For passengers in the first cars, it is chaos. A huge metallic crunch, bodies thrown forward into seats, partitions and each other, windows shattering, metal fittings twisting and snapping. People standing in the vestibules are flung to the floor. Bags and belongings go flying down the aisle. In just a few seconds, a routine early morning trip has become a serious crash. When everything finally stops, 2 electric trains sit nose to nose on a single piece of track at Trinder Park. Emergency calls go out immediately. Police, fire and ambulance crews race to the narrow strip of line squeezed between back fences and trees. The worst damage is at the front of both trains. The leading carriages are crumpled and distorted, doors jammed, metal wrapped around seats and passengers. Firefighters bring in cutting gear and work for hours, slowly opening up the wrecked cars. They free trapped passengers where they can. They carefully recover the bodies of the driver and the teenage passenger. 19 injured people are taken to 2 Brisbane hospitals for treatment. Many others are treated at the scene for cuts, bruises, and shock. Queensland Rail's acting commissioner estimates that around 50 people had been travelling on the inbound service. The exact headcount on the outbound train is less clear, but everyone agrees on one thing. For a system that was meant to be safer than ever, this is a serious, deadly failure. It is described as the first major accident on Brisbane's suburban network since the electrification program began. Very quickly, attention turns from the wreckage to the technology behind it. Rail officials and the Minister for Transport tell reporters that the Kuraby and Beenleigh section is controlled by a computer-driven signalling system, installed only 2 years earlier and described as fail-proof. Its entire purpose is to prevent exactly this sort of event: 2 trains occupying the same single-track section at the same time. Yet here, at Trinder Park, that is exactly what has happened. The Transport Minister, Don Lane, visits the site. He announces a formal inquiry to begin on the Monday and promises the results will be made public. He says the cause could be either a signal fault or human error, and then admits something that sounds a lot like disbelief. With so many safety devices built into the system, he simply did not expect this to happen. On the opposition side, the reaction is sharper. The Labor member for Woodridge, Darcy, attacks the delay in starting the inquiry, arguing it should begin immediately instead of waiting for Monday. The opposition transport spokesman, Tom Casey, links the crash to maintenance cuts. He points out that the new Kingston-Beenleigh electrified section had not been matched by increases in electrical maintenance staff. In other words, the concrete, the wires and the trains were funded. The people and time needed to keep it all in perfect condition were a different story. Like a lot of public transport disasters, the Trinder Park crash isn't just about one mistake in a cab. It's about the gap between what a system is sold as on paper and how it is actually resourced and managed day to day. One obvious weakness exposed by the accident is the single track itself. Running two-way traffic on one line means trains are always relying entirely on signals, software, and human judgment to stay apart. There is no physical separation, no second line as a backup if something slips through. In the years after the collision, Queensland Rail and successive governments push ahead with duplication works on the corridor. More and more of the old single-line sections between Kuraby and Beenleigh are converted to double track, and some of the busier stretches closer to the city are eventually triplicated so express and all-stops trains can be separated. Duplication doesn't make a railway magically safe, but it does remove one very simple, very old-fashioned risk: 2 opposing trains charging towards each other on the same strip of steel. And as southeast Queensland keeps growing, Logan filling in, Beenleigh and the Gold Coast corridor booming, that pressure only increases. In the future, even more duplication, extra tracks, and stronger protection systems will be needed just to keep up with demand and to make sure the network never again relies on a single line and one perfect system doing its job every time. Trinder Park is a reminder of what happens when high-frequency, modern-looking rail is still running over old, single-line geometry. In the weeks and months after the crash, the formal inquiry picks through signal logs, computer records, driver statements, and maintenance history, trying to pin down the exact chain of events. From the very start, though, some truths are obvious. 2 electric trains, both controlled by a system advertised as fail-proof, were allowed into the same single-track section at the same time. They met head-on at 6:45 on a quiet Sunday morning. 2 people died. 19 were injured. And the idea that the suburban network was somehow beyond serious accidents vanished in one moment of impact. For the wider public, it's a wake-up call. Electrification and computers do not erase risk. For the families and survivors, it's much more personal. They remember the sound, the long wait while firefighters cut people free, and the knowledge that a driver doing his job and an 18-year-old passenger never came home. The cruel law of Queensland Rail's head-on collision at Trinder Park is that it happened on a line people thought was safer than ever, guarded by a system that officials literally called fail-proof. It happened on a single piece of track in a quiet southern suburb, at a time of day when catching the train should have been the safest, dullest choice available. 2 trains. 1 track, 2 dead, 19 injured, and a city forced to learn that safety isn't a slogan or a buzzword in a press release. It's concrete, steel, staffing and vigilance every single day. This story is told with respect for the 54-year-old driver who died in the cab, for the 18-year-old passenger who never reached his destination, for the 19 injured, and for the emergency crews who worked for hours along that narrow strip of line. If you want more stories like this, Australian rail disasters, public transport tragedies, and dangerous places where normal life and catastrophe collide, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next episode of Cruel Law. Because sometimes the scariest tales aren't haunted tunnels or ghost trains. They're the mornings when a fail-proof system fails, and 2 trains meet nose to nose on a single track that should have been doubled long ago.